Hello everyone, my name's Tomatoanus, also known as the Itty Bitty Bulge. This is a random seed glitchless all achievement speedrun of Minecraft Java Edition performed by the world record holder Bloonskiller, and I'm gonna explain how he gets every achievement in around 50 minutes. There's a branch in the Java Edition all achievements category, pre and post 1.7. With 1.7, a new achievement was added for discovering all the biomes, which really changes the run and makes it a lot longer. So the run being covered in this video is the main all achievements category, with this run being done on patch 1.6.4, the last and most stable patch before 1.7. Java Edition has a lot fewer achievements than Bedrock, with 1.6.4 having 27 achievements compared to the 44 Bedrock had on release or the 131 it has today. The 27 achievements have a sort of progression to them. They're consequential, where you have to get some before you can get others. Like, for example, you have to get the benchmarking achievement before you can get the time to farm, mine, or strike achievements. Included in the achievements is of course beating the Ender Dragon, so this run will involve beating the game, along with a handful of other things Bloons has to do, like baking a cake, riding a minecart for 1,000 meters in one go, and riding a pig off a cliff. Worth mentioning that Bloons has a few mods installed. The most important ones are the speedrun timer, which shows both his RTA and in-game times in the top right corner through the whole run, stats per world, because for some reason your stats and achievements persist across worlds in 1.6.4 and this mod fixes that, and Atom, which makes resetting and making a new world just a button press instead of quitting to title and going through the menus again. Bloons resets a few times looking for a spawn in a desert, bonus points if there's a temple or chickens nearby. He spots some sand in the distance on this reset and notices he's next to a temple, so he opens his inventory real quick to get the first achievement and starts the run like I start every morning by whacking some wood. While karate chopping the tree, he presses Shift plus F3 to open and prepare a pie chart for later, which, yes, this speedrun utilizes a pie chart, I'll explain later, and after collecting 5 logs, he's set with enough wood to make the base tools to really start branching out in the achievements. Oi, Chicago guy, I saw this bean mix and figured I could make some coffee, but... Oh yeah, that's not coffee, that was my breakfast. It's an assortment of beans. Pinto, garbanzo, kidney, baked, jumping, magic. Why would you mix all of them? Hey Minnesota Dad, have you heard of the game ACEANDTJ Sky Hero? No, what's that? It's a new mobile bullet hell game inspired by the iconic rubber hose animations of the 1930s. It's designed for short bursts of play with runs lasting 5 minutes, and man, are they dense 5 minutes. Multiple bosses, patterns that keep evolving, just a lot of fast-paced action. Oh wow, that sounds neat. Say, do you... Oh my god, I could taste the garbanzo. You can also absorb enemy bullets and send them right back at them. And hey, there's 2-player co-op too, so you and Minnesota guy can play together. Oh, and there's a Tom and Jerry crossover too. Hey guys. Bean mix for breakfast, Chicago guy? Oh yeah. Fly, laugh, and play together in ACEANDTJ Sky Hero. Available now. Use the link in the description or scan the QR code to download the game. And don't forget, Tom and Jerry crossover. Hey, what are you listening to, Minnesota guy?
The Fitness Gram Pacer test is a multi-stage aerobic capacity
Like I mentioned during the intro, achievements are consequential where you have to get some before others. The first 3 achievements in order are opening your inventory, collecting wood, and building a crafting bench, with him having done the first 2 already, and with him now having enough wood to craft each of the base tools once he's made a crafting bench to start down the main achievement paths. So starting near the temple allows for showing off a pretty neat strat where Bloons disarms the pressure plate into TNT before setting it back up and triggering it in the main chamber while he crouches and yoinks the rest of the TNT and also makes the crafting bench. The TNT breaks a ton of blocks in the area and all the chests, providing a ton of resources he'll use through the run. This includes gold that he crafts into stronger tools after making the base tools for the achievements, along with a stone pickaxe for the getting an upgrade achievement that for some reason isn't given when you make gold tools or a stone hoe. He can now pillar on out of the temple pit with the blocks he's picked up, taking a moment to grab some stray gold that got blasted upwards by the TNT. So to get every achievement, he needs to of course beat the Ender Dragon, so he's going to be building a handful of beds to help with that. In versions 1.8 and up, terracotta is used to accent temples, but before that they used wool, so Bloons made some shears for quicker cutting and aims to get 24 wool, enough for 8 beds. You don't need that many beds to complete the run, but it's a safe number for both beating the Dragoon and also all of Bloons' other bed needs. After wrapping up at the temple, he starts surveying the area around him, with the main thing he's looking for being animals. Having cows, horses, and pigs are all important, but chickens are the real star of the show because chickens mean eggs, and eggs means cake, and cake means achievement. He doesn't really spot any mobs anywhere, which is a bit annoying, but he does spot some sugarcane nearby, which can be used both for making a cake or making books, which is needed for the enchanter and librarian achievements. Next to the temple is this swamp, which is a great place to farm a lot of leaves and wood. Bloons needs a lot of blocks, at least 2 stacks of leaves for building a tower later on, though he likes to get 3 stacks just to have a stack for utility, and he's also aiming to get at least 16 logs so he can make a full stack of planks. There is a sheep who spawned here, asking what Bloons is doing in his swamp, but since this run had a temple, Bloons already has all the wool he needs and the sheep is useless. After this resource collection, he'll still be generally surveying his surroundings. His 2 main priorities are to find mobs and also caves. Caves are important because you need to travel a kilometer to minecart for an achievement, which requires a fair bit of iron, though not as much as it sounds. And caves are also important because the big bottleneck in this run is getting diamonds, and diamonds are difficult to get quickly. Here he spotted a dungeon that spawned just below the surface of some sand, so the sand all fell, making the dungeon easy to spot. He checks the chest for any goodies, with him coming away with some iron and buckets and some string that he'll use to make a bow for the sniper duel achievement. When he beaches himself, he finds a hog and destroys some grass for seed before hopping back in the water to see if he can spot a cave attached to the dungeon or anything. He wants to cook up the piggy but doesn't have flint and steel and was hoping he could spot a cave where he could find gravel to get flint, but no dice. He's starting to feel a bit peckish though, so he'll house some rotten flesh he got in the desert temple to curb his hunger pangs. The desert temple in this run was ultimately a bit helpful, but not quite as helpful as it could have been. In fact, it's theoretically possible to get everything you need for the entire run from a temple and then just play the rest of the run like an any percent run, but you'd have to be incredibly lucky to get a spawn like that, and I don't think there's anyone out there lucky enough to really grind for that type of all achievements run. He's moving towards an area ahead that is a clearing in the trees, which is important for the tower he's going to build later, which I will get to explaining at some point. And he clears more grass to get at least 2 seeds, hoes some land, plants the seeds, and fertilizes them with bone meal from the temple to quickly grow and harvest wheat. He needs 6 wheat in total, 3 for the cake and 3 for a loaf of bread. It's near his modest and humble family farm that he spots his first cave, a perfect opportunity to destroy some gravel and hopefully get some flint so that he can then make flint and steel and cook some goddamn hogs. When he goes to craft the flint and steel, he actually goes to craft it wrong at first, forgetting that in 1.6.4 the flint and steel recipe isn't shapeless and has to be built with flint specifically bottom right of the ingot. Still crafted it 50 times faster than it takes me to bumble my way through such a simple recipe. He's still kinda looking for chickens or even a good cave since the first one didn't immediately yield much in the way of resources. He spotted some swine here and uses his crafting bench to make an iron sword so that his pig to pork chop pipeline is expedited, all within eyeshot of the oinkers who just stand there, blissfully unaware of their impending fate like they're a No Country for Old Men NPC. He's also gonna fill one of his buckets with water while laying waste to the Suidae swarm. While he keeps looking around for livestock and caves, it's worth bringing up the white boxes surrounding the mobs and also the one sticking out of Steve like he's ready to snap into a Slim Jim. These are actually the hitboxes, which you can turn on by pressing F3 plus B. In this version, the hitboxes are opaque and white, unlike the wireframe boxes from later patches. This does help with spotting things though, since it's easier to see a white box against the environment than a wireframe one. Bloons is about to spot a village in the distance on the right up here, which is super promising since they can have lots of food, including carrots, which are busted in this version. After making sugar from some cane, he makes a pit stop at some livestock outside the village, with him farming a few more pork chops from the oinkers and him killing a few asses to try and get leather. There's one achievement related to getting leather, Cow Tipper, which he'll get when he harvests some leather dropped by one of the asses. Despite the name, you don't have to get the leather from a cow for the achievement, just any animal that can drop it. Back to the village, it can also have a library in it, which will be great because if you can manage to get 2 bookshelves, then later on you don't need to worry about crafting books with leather and sugarcane. There can also be blacksmith chests containing obsidian, diamonds, or saddles, which would be colossal, especially the obsidian or diamonds. It would eliminate a lot of obnoxious parts of the run. As he arrives at the village, he spots some desert in the distance and begins planning to go there after figuring out the village. I'll get to why soon. The first building he enters happens to be a library, so he whips his axe out like we all do in libraries and grabs the required books for the run. This means he can toss out the leather he just got to free up an inventory slot since he doesn't need it for making books anymore. Bloons is like me where hobbies overlap and I often get the munchies while reading, so he makes a loaf of bread real quick for an achievement and also spills his seed on the library floor before leaving. As he checks out the village and its surroundings, he spots a lava pool in the distance on the left. Oftentimes, runners want to prioritize entering the nether because even if they might not be able to do anything there at the moment, it's a good indicator of whether you should reset. Fortresses are the only place you can get nether wart, which we need for brewing potions, and it's also the only place blazes can spawn, which are what you get blaze rods from, with blaze rods needed for making brewing stands for potions and also needed to access the end. One of the most annoying things when doing all achievement runs is putting off entering the nether for 17 minutes only to find out it's a bad seed with no nearby fortresses, so entering the nether earlier is just good reset and time efficiency. Well, all that being said, this run Bloons is going to put off entering the nether until 17 minutes in, so let's see how it turns out for him then. Right now he's exploring some nearby caves, trying to get iron since you need 35 in total for the whole run, and usually it's kinda annoying to get that much. Speaking of things he's still searching for, he spotted chickens nearby outside the cave, and they drop an egg after about 5 minutes on average, though it can range by a bit. Bloons is trying to not stray too far from the chickens because you have to stay within 128 blocks of them for them to be spawned in and shit an egg. He takes out a creeper that was getting a little too close for comfort, which gives him the Monster Hunter achievement, then fulfills no one's lifelong fantasy of cicada roleplay, emerging to the surface from underground. When he passes by the lava pool, he fills a bucket with lava while dumping out some water, and is now going to begin building this damn tower I've brought up a couple times. He starts by crafting some slabs and walls, and he'll then make a bed and drop a few extra things before surveying the land and getting started. The tower's overall purpose is to farm endermen for ender pearls, which you of course need in order to make Eyes of Ender so you can enter the end. This specific setup is called the Lava Fence Tower, which was designed by Chaos, a runner who really pioneered 1.7 RSG and developed a ton of strats. Bloons makes a cobblestone base with slabs and blocks and uses a cobblestone wall under the lava so it's slightly offset. He'll then start building up, following a very specific layout and using leaves and stone in deliberate places. This setup will essentially help endermen pathfind you, with one specific block in the tower breaking their pathfinding and making them fall into a hole that Bloons is gonna build. The lava is specifically to help kill spiders that are gonna spawn, which is the advantage this tower design has over others. Take note of the sand block he places here, that'll be important in a little bit. Up here he builds his bunk bed with 2 leaf blocks behind the bed, since if you have 2 transparent blocks like leaves or TNT behind a bed, then when you spawn in, you spawn at the top of the blocks rather than the top of the bed, and in this case the top of the blocks is going to be the top of the tower. He also places a ladder above the bed so that he can jump off the top of the tower and easily grab the ladder to stop the fall. 17 blocks up from this ladder, he's going to build another one facing a different direction than the first. This second ladder is just the right height above a section of the tower's base below, where if you drop from the ladder to the base, you'll have exactly half a heart of health left, which will be super useful for dying repeatedly to farm the pearls. Bloons will then build up until his tower is 113 blocks above ground level. An easy way to determine how high you exactly are is by pulling up the stat screen and standing on the edge of the tower so that you're kind of floating off the edge, and the next block below you is technically the ground. By looking at the FL or floor value on the stat screen, you can see the exact height of the next block below you. The ground level here is 64, so that means he'll pillar up until his tower is at the height of 177, at which point he places another sand block with a ladder on it. This ladder is on the same side as the previous ladder below, facing south, while the bed and bed ladder he built are facing east. He'll then go up 17 more blocks and build some blocks on the south side to align with the two non-bed ladders. So why tower up so high? Well, mobs spawn in the range of 24 to 127 blocks away in a sphere all around you. If a mob is 128 blocks away or more, they force despawn. This spawn radius extends below and above you, which is how mobs can spawn in caves underground or in caves above you if you're underground. This tower is just the right height so that when you spawn at the very top, having been upwarp there from the bed, you're just out of range of the ground, so all mobs are force despawned. If you drop to the upper south non-bed ladder, you lower that spawn sphere to intersect with the ground a bit, condensing the area that mobs can spawn to be directly surrounding the tower. Mob spawn rate is a function of how much area they have to spawn though, so the height of the top ladder that he's going to sit on while mobs spawn is calculated to give the mobs an area to spawn in that maximizes the number of mobs that spawn in as little time as possible. If you want to see a full breakdown of the concepts behind this, I highly recommend you check out this video by T-Wags that I've linked in the description. More on the mobs and towers in a minute, because he's now at the top and dropping off on the side the bed's on, so he catches the ladder above the bed, giving me a huge sense of vertigo while he does some inventory management, noshes some bread, crafts some buttons, and sleeps in the bed to set his spawn point. He's still gotta build his trap to catch and kill all the endermen, so after waking up from his beauty rest, he hops to the ground and proceeds to dig a hole 45 blocks deep. He pulls up that pie chart again while he digs down, which is a specific chart that has a small percent value in the bottom right. A spike in this value indicates that there are things like chests and spawners rendered in his field of vision, even if it's obstructed by blocks in the way. This is super useful for triangulating the stronghold, which is where you access the end, since the stronghold has chests and a silverfish spawner inside, so if you see a spike in the percent, there's a chance the stronghold is nearby in the direction you're facing. The percent went up a little bit when he first started digging, so Bloons started low-key freaking out like, okay, if I hit the stronghold while digging down here, I'm gonna lose it because that would be incredibly rare. Unfortunately, it wasn't the stronghold he was burrowing towards, it was a mine shaft, which isn't the worst outcome since he can take this time to grab some string from spiderwebs and also pick up a few minecart rails, saving on a bunch of iron he'd need. Once he's done with the shaft maintenance akin to a college student on a Friday morning hoping to get lucky that night, he builds up the walls around the pit he dug, empties out 7 spots around and below him for TNT, lights himself on fire, and places all the TNT just before he dies, including one above him, right below a button he placed at the bottom of the pit. This will respawn him at the top of the tower with all of his inventory sitting down underneath the TNT. It'll be there for the next 5 minutes before it despawns, so he's gotta have a sense of urgency to get this tower split done within that time. He lowers his FOV a bit since he finds it easier to spot endermen that way, drops to the top south side ladder, waits a few moments while looking at the stats, then drops down to the bottom south side ladder. Bloons can then watch as any nearby endermen walk over and drop down the hole, and once the last one he sees falls for his Looney Tunes trap, he jumps off the tower to kill himself and start the process over again. In the stats screen, there's a value labeled E, which is how many entities are being rendered. He made a mental note of what the value approximately is when he's at the bottom of the tower, which in this run is about 195, and plans to make his drop every time from the top ladder when the E value climbs to be about 35 less than that, so around 160. Whenever he gets to the bottom, gravely wounded from the fall, he makes eye contact with all the endermen, angering them since the only eye contact they like is with themselves in their laptop screen after turning off the porn they just busted to, and once the last enderman drops down, Bloons drops off to kill himself again. So I had brought up before how he spotted a desert in the distance and was planning to go there after the village. Usually you want to build your tower in the desert, and that's why Bloons was planning to go there. When it came time to start building the tower though, he was concerned he wouldn't have enough time to get to the desert and fully build it before night, so he settled for ditching the desert and building in the plains instead. This is actually fairly risky because it can rain in the plains, and endermen can teleport around in the rain, which just makes it impossible to do anything. It doesn't rain in the desert though, which makes it perfect to build your tower in. Because he typically builds the tower in the desert and isn't used to building in plains, he gets thrown off by horses a few times, catching a glimpse of them and thinking that they're Endermen. So the tower, while relatively simple in concept, is pretty easy to mess up in execution. If you build it wrong by even a block, the whole thing can get messed up and you can end up not catching the ladder and dying when you drop. Thankfully, Bloons is a bit of an expert when it comes to building these towers both quickly and correctly. So sometimes when you drop to the bottom, there won't be any Endermen that spawned. If this happens, that's when you get to utilize the sand block that I called attention to when he started building the tower. That's essentially a kill yourself block, where if you don't spot an Enderman when you drop down, you just jump off the bottom ledge onto the block and you die slightly sooner than if you jump to the ground. This tower design has a handful of small optimizations in place like that. It's just a really good design that Chaos drew up. Something else that was going on during this tower split is there ended up being a zombie horde amassing to attack the village. Not too relevant, but fun to call out. So while Bloons grinds away these pearls, dropping off the tower repeatedly, I'd just like to say, as always, that I hope you're all doing well. If you're not, then please remember, as always, that no feeling is final and that there is a tomorrow. You are in no way defined by the way you feel or where you're at mentally or emotionally. There's so much more to you as a human than those things. If things are particularly tough and you can't seem to escape the clouds of those thoughts, just know that things will get better, even if little by little, even if you don't notice it day to day. One day you will notice it though, and you'll realize just how far you've come, how long you've gone without thinking about certain things. Where you're at right now will end up being just where you were, rather than the definition of who you were or are. Please keep that in mind, and always remember that no feeling is final. So around 4 minutes have passed since he died at the bottom of the Ender Pit, meaning it's about time to see how the pearl farming has been going. Endermen have a 50% chance to drop a pearl, and to finish the game, Bloons needs a minimum of 12 pearls. Pearls, when turned into Eyes of Ender, have a 20% chance of breaking when used though, so realistically he wants to aim for at least 14 pearls to play it safe. He drops down the pit here, keeping an eye on his first inventory slot to see how many pearls he picks up when he lands and dies. Here he ended up having 12, the exact minimum, but it's very risky, so he decides to do another drop. This time he ends up having a lot of Endermen spawn, so he feels comfortable having this be the last one. He breaks the leaf boxes above him that are behind the bed so that he'll no longer get upwarped and spawn at the top of the tower, and then sleeps through the rest of the night to clear out the mobs. Remember, Bloons died at the bottom of the shaft at around 11 minutes 30 seconds, so he's getting really close to the 5-minute mark where all his inventory sitting down there will despawn. As he drops off, he hits a wall in front of him to do a cooldown skip, where the wall hit removes a 5-tick cooldown before breaking the next block, so that he can instantly break the TNT below him and hit the lever on the wall to begin detonating the TNT down here. He instantly respawns and drops back down the pit, with you being invulnerable for 3 seconds after spawning, so when he hits the bottom and picks up the 14 pearls and all his inventory that was close to despawning, he not only doesn't take fall damage, but he doesn't take damage from the TNT and gets trampolined all the way out of the pit. Reunited with his gear, Bloons does a bit of crafting, starting by making a gold shovel, which, worth mentioning, he doesn't craft many gold tools in advance of using them because it can be easy to overcrowd your inventory with them. He also uses some sticks and string to make both a bow and fishing rod for later. Worth mentioning that this being 1.6.4, a quality of life feature missing from this version is there's no sprint button. Anytime you want to sprint, you have to double tap W, which is actually really annoying when you're so focused on your movement in a speedrun. Fully de-Rapunzeling himself, he glances around for chickens, still needing an egg for cake and also needing feathers for arrows. After taking out a creeper and using a leaf block to protect himself from the explosion, Bloons does a little bit of inventory management before resolving that it's time to finally enter the Nether, 17 minutes into the run, just like he typically likes to avoid. Building the portal is a bit awkward in this version since you have to be super careful with where adjacent obsidian blocks are. If you have obsidian blocks on both sides of the portal entrance, then for whatever reason, the portal won't ignite when you try to light it. When he enters the Nether, he doesn't get the "we need to go deeper" achievement because he's yet to get any diamonds and the diamonds achievement. In fact, he hasn't even crafted a furnace yet, which is required for a precursor achievement to diamonds, so even if he had found diamonds so far, he's still limited by not having Hot Topic. That's how the achievement is pronounced, by the way. You have to say diamonds! He pulls up his pie chart after entering and is going to use it to try and scout out a nether fortress, looking for small spikes in the percentage. As he pokes around, laughing at us for having to endure the netherrack absolutely tanking the video's bitrate, he's not seeing too much in regards to the pie chart. He notices a ghast vibing out near the ceiling, so he takes a moment to double check where he's at with achievements, since the Return to Sender achievement is earned from hitting a ghast with an Uno reverse card and killing it with its own fireball. He doesn't have the prerequisites though, so going to have to wait on that. Bloons messes around with his FOV a bit to help with narrowing his search for a fort, and notices the pie chart goes from 0.01 to 0.02% when facing one direction, so he sets off that way, hoping that it'll result in something and that he didn't just waste 18 minutes of his time to end up resetting. He starts strip mining in the direction of the potential fortress, and he throws down a crafting bench to make a couple gold pickaxes so he can cut through the netherrack like fast food cuts through my intestinal tract. When he crawls out of his tunnel, there's a ghast on the left waiting to welcome him to the neighborhood, which he narrowly avoids a blast from. He keeps heading in the general direction of the 0.02% tick, which when he checks up here will still be at 0.02%. It's just over this crest ahead, which he scales smoothly by placing blocks below him as he jumps and lands, that he then spots nether brick indicative of a fortress. These 19 minutes have not been wasted. So now that he's found a fort, he's going to try and find a blaze spawner. You really don't want to spend too long in the nether because you do have to utilize the second night cycle of the overworld to kill a skeleton with a bow from really far away for the sniper duel achievement. If you don't get out of the nether in time for at the very least the end of the second night, then the run is pretty much dead since you'll lose so much time either waiting for the next night or searching for a skeleton underground. After busting into the fort like I busted in your dad's mouth, he again checks the pie chart because even though he's found a fortress, he still needs to locate a blaze spawner, which the pie chart helps with. He uses third person here to scout his surroundings after he exited the covered path and spots a blaze spawner up ahead on the right. Blaze spawners aren't that bad in modern patches since you can barter fire resistance potions from piglins, but that's not an option in this patch since piglins were added in 1.16. On top of that, blaze spawners are out in the open and the blazes can kinda go everywhere and be erratic, so in runs on this patch, the blaze spawner portion can be really sketchy. To help mitigate blazes floating away when he smacks them, he builds a kind of trident roof above the spawner that'll trap them inside. After he takes out this blaze wave, he starts mining out the area around the spawner to increase the available spawning space, which allows for more blazes to potentially spawn. He'll get ganked by a blaze out of spawn here, but after taking it and its friend out, he'll return to his remodeling. Part of this setup has him also placing 2 blocks at the entrance above the stairs. This is so that if he gets a big spawn and is overwhelmed by their numbers to the point where he can't kill them all before they start fireballing, he has a place he can flee and hide. He takes this moment between waves to stay productive by placing down his crafting bench and finally making a furnace to get the Hot Topic achievement. Bloons puts that bad boy to work right away by smelting iron in it, which will cross off the Acquire Hardware achievement once he collects the smelted ingots. He went to craft a brewing stand a moment ago since you need to brew a potion for an achievement, but he ended up changing his mind and holding off for now. Bloons himself voiced to me that he's not sure why he didn't make it here while waiting and that he thinks he probably should have crafted it here. This stretch of the run then turns into a fair bit of waiting. He currently has 14 pearls, so that means his goal is to get at least 8 blaze rods. He wants to save 1 blaze rod for crafting a brewing stand, and the other 7 he'll use to make blaze powder. Each blaze rod makes 2 blaze powders, giving him 14 powders from the remaining 7 rods, which pairs with his 14 pearls to make 14 eyes. He kills a lot of this waiting time by placing and farming gravel. He needs to make arrows later for the sniper duel achievement and final fight, but arrows require flint, feathers, and sticks. Gravel has a 10% chance of dropping flint, so placing the gravel he has and shoveling it while waiting for blazes to spawn is a great way to be as efficient with your time as possible. Killing this group of blazes puts him over the 8 he needs with 10, and he breaks the spawner before he leaves just to be safe. So this area of the fortress that the spawner was in, a section without a roof, this is what the community refers to as a good part of the fortress. The spawner can only be out in these open areas. The bad part is the sections of the fortress with the nether brick roof. It's bad because there are no spawners there, with spawners being the big main reason why we sought out the fortress in this run and the only reason you come here in any percent runs. There's still value in the bad parts though, since there are chests littered throughout the fortress that can hold all sorts of goodies. Like in these first chests on the left up here, he's going to find some gold and iron, with the iron being super nice for making more minecart tracks later on. He's also going to find some nether wart up ahead, which is super nice since he can use it later to brew a potion and earn the local brewery achievement. The main things he's looking for in these chests though are diamond and obsidian, with these chests being one of the last places in the run where you can get diamonds easily. Diamonds are somewhat likely to appear in these chests, so it's not uncommon to get them this way, and it's the main way Bloons typically ends up getting them in these runs. In total, he needs 2 diamonds and 4 obsidian for making an enchantment table, which is required for an achievement. Alternatively, he can get 5 diamonds and no obsidian. That way he can craft a diamond pick to be able to mine the obsidian he needs. As he pathfinds through the fortress hunting for chests, it's important to note that you'll see Bloons retracing his steps a lot through this portion of the run and walking through the same area multiple times. He's trying to not stray too far from the one area and explore the branching paths off of it. That way he doesn't get too turned around and lose track of where he came from. Here he ends up finding both a diamond and a saddle in one chest, which is a great find since the saddle is needed for the When Pigs Fly achievement and it's only in a recent patch that you can craft a saddle. Something worth calling out that I'm sure you've noticed is that Bloons jumps a lot when he sprints. This is because sprint jumping is simply faster than regular sprinting, so maximizing sprint jumps is super good as long as it doesn't detract from your navigation and turning. So while Bloons hops around the fortress looking for more shit to shove in his pockets before leaving, I'd like to give a huge thank you to some pivotal people in making this video possible. My patrons. The only reason you're watching this video at this exact instant is because of them. They suggested and voted on this run to be covered, which is something you can participate in as well at patreon.com/tomatoanus if you contribute $3 a month. This also gives you access to things like videos early and without ads, and updates on what videos are in production. And if you support at the middle tier at $6 a month, you also gain access to my monthly retrospective series as they release month to month, as opposed to having to wait a full year to catch them on my second channel. The $6 a month tier also gets you access to a monthly live Q&A that essentially boils down to me doing tier lists or playing fishing video games while answering any questions my patrons might have. Supporting the channel through Patreon is entirely optional and unnecessary. You don't have to do it at all. That's what makes the people who do it all the more special though, helping make sure that I can pay my bills and keep making videos while also helping me pay the speedrunners I work with for their time and expertise. Again, thank you to all of you who helped make this possible, truly. Back to the run, Bloons is wrapped up at the fortress and is finding his way back to the portal. He has a few arrows sticking out of him like he's Boromir, but his resolve remains intact. Up here, he'll drop the diamond he got from the chest and pick it back up to earn the Diamonds achievement. To get the achievement, you have to pick them up off the ground as if you had just mined them, so if the first diamond you get is from a chest, gotta first drop it like it's hot. While he's running back to the portal, he's still grinding gravel, placing it down and hitting it with the shovel, all without breaking his stride. He isn't 100% sure what his flint count is off the top of his head, but he's pretty sure he doesn't have enough, so gotta try and squeak out as much as he physically can. He's still on the clock with trying to get back to the overworld before the second night ends, so it's pretty important to not get lost or anything when heading back. This is a bit easier said than done though, because the seed you get can have a big influence on this. Sometimes you get a great seed where the portal is just in a fort and you don't need to stress about it at all. Sometimes though you get a really annoying seed like this one where the portal spawned in a cave that has weird branching out paths that can be hard to trace back to the portal. Ultimately here he did actually end up getting a bit turned around. He spots a bunch of blocks he placed when initially navigating the area near the portal, but had a bit of a hard time tracking down exactly where the portal itself was. There's a bunch of caves branching out from each other here, and every time he went to head one direction, he'd peek around and realize that's not the direction he came from. He even busts out the pie chart at one point to try and pick out where the portal is. He knows it's around here somewhere though, and I love that coming up you can pick out the exact moment where he spots the obsidian and immediately leaps into action sprinting to it. He farms some more gravel as he warps out, netting himself another flint in the process, and now that he has the diamonds achievement, he's able to get the we need to go deeper achievement since you get it from just using a portal regardless of which direction you go. This is a precursor achievement to Into Fire, the one for getting a blaze rod, so similar to the diamond one, he whips out his rod, unfurling it onto the ground, and picks it back up to get the achievement. As he waits for night to encroach, he looks around for chickens since he still needs feathers and also an egg, Red Lucy looking ass. After killing 2 unlucky chickens, he passes the time spent waiting for night and mobs to spawn by doing some crafting. He starts by making some arrows, with this being a great opportunity to see how cluttered his inventory is, with all of this junk being important, other than maybe the dirt. He also crafts a brewing stand with some cobblestone and a blaze rod, followed by making some more tools with his gold. Bloons does feel he probably could have dropped the gold by this point, since it could be annoying to just have it taking up space in your inventory, but Kest Levi. He spotted some cows nearby, which is really awesome since you need 3 milk to make a cake. He throws down a crafting table to make 1 more bucket so he has enough to hold all that cow juice, and makes direct eye contact with the bovine he's about to make feel fine. He bakes the cake, but like most of us with baking, botches the recipe on his first try. He doesn't want to walk around with cake in his pocket, so he throws it on the ground, then starts looking around for some more chickens to kill. He might not need any more eggs, but he does still need feathers to craft arrows. He'll only need a few arrows at most for the sniper duel achievement, where he has to kill a skeleton with an arrow from over 50 blocks away, but he'll need arrows for the final fight too, so gotta get more feathers. He now gets to looking for skeletons since mobs are cropping up. He spots one up ahead here, but has to kinda strafe wide around a creeper to approach carefully, and he hits Skelly with his sword a few times so it'll die in 1 shot. There's quite a crowd developing around this skeleton though, with a bunch of mobs gathering who would gladly take an arrow for this bony fuck, so as Bloons runs to put distance between him and it, he passes by another, more isolated skeleton who catches his attention. He whacks it a couple times like I'm wont to do on a lonely night, and flees to go build a tiny tower over 50 blocks away. Archery at this range is partially RNG since your arrow's trajectory isn't 100% consistent, but he's got almost 10 arrows, so it's no biggie if it takes a few shots. Before fledging and leaving his perch, he crafts more arrows to prep for the final fight, along with a bed. He plans to sleep the rest of the night away so he doesn't have to deal with mobs, but he has to run away from the mobs first so they aren't within the 8-block range that prevents you from going to sleep. Sleeping in this bed resets his spawn point, so next time he dies, he'll spawn at this bed, which isn't far from the tower he built. This is important because after beating the Ender Dragon, he'll use the end fountain that spawns to warp back to the overworld since he's planning to do a few achievements after the end, and this area near the tower is where the Nether portal is. Well, he had a little brain fart and ended up breaking the bed, thinking he was conserving resources for the Ender Dragon fight. Since he now has no most recent bed, his respawn point is set to the spawn point for the world where he originally started, and he didn't realize that happened until much later. Ultimately, it's okay though. He's still going to end up finishing this run faster than anyone in the world not named Bloons has ever completed a run. After taking inventory of what achievements he still needs to get, he sets out to take care of the ones that are easily achievable right now in the overworld. He spots some sand nearby, so he decides to go grab some and smelt it into glass, which blew my mind because I had always thought that glass was frozen air. The glass is for making bottles that will be used in brewing, and while that goes, he throws the saddle he found in the fortress chest onto a pig and towers up a little. This is a newer strat that's kinda a swag strat where it's really cool but only saves a couple seconds when done right, where he uses the fishing rod to heave a hog into the hemisphere and he then hops his hiney on the hog as it hurtles to the ground and gets hurt. This gets the When Pigs Fly achievement, which requires you to ride a pig while it falls higher than 6 blocks. This is actually a relatively newer strat. They used to just dig a hole and ride the pig into it, but this is much cooler. Because it's newer, he doesn't have quite as much practice with it and it took a couple tries, but fun fact, in the process of making this video, Bloons recorded a run that would have been a new world record, but accidentally deleted it. The deleted run was roughly 30 seconds or so faster than his current record, but he did this strat in that one too and got it first try. After hitting the trick, he kills the pig as a fuck you, along with a chicken for good measure. He tosses some dirt blocks into orbit since he doesn't really need them crowding his inventory, then uses the glass from the furnace to make some bottles, and makes an Eye of Ender he'll use immediately to begin triangulating the stronghold. He'll then set off in that direction, putting a momentary pause in the achievement collection to sniff out the stronghold. As he sprints across the overworld, he's periodically throwing down blocks to serve as a breadcrumb trail. This way, if he diverts from this path at any point, he can have a reliable reference point as to the direction he was headed when last triangulating. He's using the pie chart again, keeping an eye on the percentage for spikes that might indicate the stronghold is spawned in and is within his field of view somewhere underground. He tries to use the Eyes of Ender sparingly since they have a 20% chance of breaking on any given throw, meaning that it's right around a 50% chance of an eye breaking within 3 throws. After resolving to take a quick fishing break here and enjoy the little things in life, he does throw another eye though, which he tracks the direction of for after angling some fish. Before catching a fish, he lets out his inner Frank Reynolds by chumming/polluting the local pond with 5 raw chickens and some bones. He then sets off in the direction the Eye of Ender flew. Right now, Bloons is hoping that when he eventually finds the stronghold that there's either a cave there where he can find diamonds or altar chests that have diamonds. He believes that his lack of diamonds is what was ultimately the largest time loss of the run. If he had the diamonds right now, he'd be able to knock out brewing and enchanting immediately, then could go do the end fight, followed by entering the nether to do the ghast kill and minecart rail achievements to wrap up the run. This run would be for sure sub 40 pace, which is ridiculously good, but unfortunately those diamonds are being real elusive. He's also not really feeling too confident about the stronghold location right now, because based on what his coordinates are, he's moving away from spawn as he chases these Eyes of Ender vectors and is getting pretty far. With how far from spawn he is, it works out so that right now he's either very close to a stronghold or he's really far from one, hence the lack of confidence in this turning out well. After checking out this iron ore though and realizing he actually doesn't need any more, he throws another eye which flies back the direction he came from. This assuages his fear that he might be far from a stronghold, since this means he passed one between now and the last time he threw an eye, so he starts heading back the way he came, navigating through the forest. As he backtracks, you might have noticed that he's relying on his pie chart less as this goes on. He's pretty near to a mine shaft, which kinda obfuscates the pie chart and renders it useless, so he's just working off his gut and triangulation skills now. Once he throws another Eye of Ender and notices it float off in a different direction than his path he's doubled back on, he sets off that way, laying down multiple wood blocks to mark out the line he's on. Unfortunately, the Eye of Ender did break here, so he's down to 13 total he has/can make with his current inventory. After establishing a little bit of a trail here, he's then going to branch off from it and throw another eye. If he's gone far enough to pass the stronghold on the path that he's marked out, then the Eye of Ender will float back towards an intersection point with the breadcrumb trail, indicating the stronghold location. Here he throws it, and it thankfully tracks back to an intersection with his path, but he got really unlucky with this eye breaking too. This brings him down to 12 eyes, but he has a solid idea of where the stronghold is and gets digging. To enter the end and fight the Ender Dragon, you need to fill all the portal blocks with Eyes of Ender, 12 in total, with there being a chance that some portal blocks start filled, but it can also be a 0 eye where all blocks are empty and you have to use all your eyes/pearls to fill it. 0 eyes are super scary, since when you warp into the end, there's a chance the platform you spawn on is really far away from the island where you fight the dragon, so having some pearls left over to span the gap is super useful. He utilizes the pie chart again here just to make sure that he doesn't tunnel past the stronghold and miss it, but he hears some silverfish so he knows he's in the right place, and in this run actually got a really nice result with this mine spitting him out right into the portal room. Bloons drops down and identifies the portal being a 1 eye, as in 1 portal block is filled, so he'll for sure have at least 1 pearl left over in case of emergency, and he breaks the silverfish spawner so they don't dick with him, just like this little asshole here dicked with him. He assesses the stronghold layout, seeing that the goddamn library of Trinity College is adjacent to the portal room, with the other door leading to a mine shaft that also happens to overlook the library of Trinity. This begins what Bloons feel is one of the most annoying stretches of the run, navigating through the stronghold and connected cave system to try and find diamonds. Like I mentioned a little bit ago, he's of course checking the cave for diamonds, but they can also spawn in altar chests, with there being a 7.3% chance of some spawning. That means that it takes an average of about 13 to 14 chests before you'll find any diamonds, but Bloons got really lucky with him finding a diamond in the first chest he stumbles upon up here, which also contains a fresh iron sword he swaps out for his old beaten up one. So as he navigates through this cave, it's worth bringing up again that in this version of Minecraft, you can't just press a button to sprint, you've gotta double tap W. It's ridiculously cumbersome and particularly annoying when you're in mines like this one where you're constantly bumping into things and restarting your sprint. Here he breaks a door and places a block down to help block a creeper from following him, though it wasn't wholly necessary. Still, it serves as an identifiable landmark not far from the portal room. The altar chest diamond that Bloons found brought him to 2 diamonds total, which is just rough and unlucky for this far in a run. Technically, to finish the run, you only need 2 diamonds for crafting an enchantment table, but you also need those 4 obsidian blocks I mentioned earlier as part of the recipe. He never got any obsidian blocks from the Nether Fortress chest, so he still has to mine some, meaning he needs a diamond pick and actually needs 5 diamonds total, which with how this seed has been going is a pretty big ask. He's got to do a lot of searching to hope he gets lucky with a diamond vein, or a great diamond chest, or multiple diamond chests. Here he gets overwhelmed by multiple mobs, so he cask of Amontillado himself to get a moment's respite that's immediately interrupted by the creeper blowing himself up in frustration and a spider saying he actually isn't a fan of Poe and walking around the wall Bloons built. It's also important to note that while Bloons is deep in this spelunking phase, he's always trying to keep a general sense of direction about him. Sure, losing a run with a pace this good this late to a bad diamond seed would really suck, but it'd honestly feel worse getting the diamonds only to lose the run from getting lost and being unable to retrace your steps. He's mainly focusing on trying to suss out which paths looked like they would go farther down vertically and not taper off quickly, while also trying to avoid taking any paths that might be just difficult to navigate quickly. Like when presented with continuing down the path he's on and taking his time to carefully navigate around lava, he'll just go to the next available path to maintain an expedited search. Right up here, Bloons ends up finding a diamond vein, and a gnarly one at that, netting him 5 to bring him to 7 total. This is enough to make the enchanting table and pickaxe while having enough left over to make something like a diamond sword, which he'll fully take advantage of later. He also somehow spots obsidian under this water here, which, like, how? When squinting I can barely make out that those blocks are different, but not gonna look a gift horse in the mouth. This will net him all the obsidian he needs for the run. Mining obsidian takes eons though, so he's gonna multitask a bit, first by setting up his brewing stand to get some potions going, and then he'll also start a fish fry in a furnace. He collects some water with his frozen air bottles and combines it with the nether wart he picked earlier to brew some awkward potions, which will give him the local brewery achievement when finished. Awkward potions are the stepping stone for all the real potions, and brewing them with some blaze powder makes potions of strength. If you're under the effects of a strength potion and land a critical hit with an iron sword or anything stronger, you deal over 9 hearts of damage, netting you the overkill achievement, which he plans to get against an enderman when he fights the dragon. For melee weapons, crits happen when you hit a mob while you're falling, so like jump and then hit them while you're coming down for 150% damage. So after breaking and claiming his fourth and final obsidian block, he grabs a strength potion from his microbrewery and also the fish from the furnace for the delicious fish achievement. He's gonna bang out a few other outstanding achievements now as well, with him making a crafting bench real quick that he'll finally get to make an enchanting table with, using the obsidian and diamonds he's hunted down. With enchanter off the list, he can finally use the books he stole from the village to make a bookshelf to get the librarian achievement. He makes a diamond sword with the 2 spare diamonds, cause why not, let's have some fun, then enchants the sword, pick, and shovel he's been using, cause why not, let's have some fun. This seed ultimately led Bloons pretty far away from the portal room, so he's now gotta go on an odyssey to get back there, with there being a ton of mobs he blew past earlier he now has to cross paths with again. Let's sit back for a moment and watch as he attempts what would be a ridiculous feat of navigation and confrontation avoidance, the likes of which haven't been seen since I ran into an X while I was lost in a mirror maze. As Bloons arrives back to the Library of Trinity, he uses his handy bucket of water to place water below himself and prevent fall damage before quickly placing a block between himself and a creeper to block the explosion from hitting him. Arriving at the portal, he then crafts a bunch of beds for the final fight against the Ender Dragon, since trying to sleep in a bed while in the End or the Nether causes the bed to explode, which deals more damage than TNT and is great for quickly taking out the Ender Dragon. After crafting and placing the final Eyes of Ender, he leaps on in and earns the End achievement. Bloons then uses one of his 2 remaining ender pearls to quickly get from the portal up to solid ground where the dragoon is waiting, where he right away places a bed with a block to protect himself from damage, with him sleeping in it as soon as the dragon gets close. So this fight in pre-1.9 runs is pretty dope, and in Bloons' opinion, one of the most mechanically intensive things in speedrunning. The dragon essentially picks a target to fly at random, and whenever it gets to that target, or whenever it takes damage, it picks a new target, with there being a 1/4 chance on each change to pick the player. That makes his game plan to shoot down crystals to damage the dragon as much as possible to constantly try and get her to charge you so you can smack her with a bed. You'll often see Bloons placing the bed on top of blocks to elevate it more, which essentially subsumes more of the dragon in the blast for more damage. Sometimes Bloons is lit on fire by the explosion, but he thankfully still has that bucket of water that he flash dances himself with to extinguish the flames. If the dragon isn't connected to a crystal like she is here, he instead aims to hit her directly. On the charge after this one, the dragon will approach from a higher angle, which calls for you to do a flip bed, which is the hardest one to execute. You first run under the dragon to get behind her so she turns around, and you then have to immediately pill her up. This manipulates her into turning around and continuing her charge at you while also bringing her slightly out of the ground, which you respond with by dropping down and catching some Z's. This flip bed nearly kills her, but she starts flying away, so Bloons has got to land some ludicrous snipes here to hopefully get her to change direction. Once she finally says screw it and flies to her doom, he hits her with the last bed before then whipping out and shotgunning the strength potion. When he goes to attack an Enderman here, he needs to land a crit for the overkill achievement, which again is done with a melee weapon by attacking while you fall, so he just jumps and whacks the dude on the way down and boom. When he goes to exit the End through the portal that spawned where he killed the dragon, he'll be given the End achievement, meaning he only has 2 left, the one where you have to kill a ghast with its own fireball, and also the one for riding a minecart 1000 blocks uninterrupted. Going through this portal spawns you at your most recent rest spot, but remember that Bloons broke the last bed he slept in right after waking up, so his spawn point is set to the world's spawn point. It's a small mechanical mistake on his part that had huge repercussions since he now has to make his way all the way back to the base of operations he set up, since that's where the nether portal is. Let's fast forward a little bit through him gathering some utility resources like wood and making his way back home. Once his home, that's the equivalent of the Earth's boner, comes into view, he's in the home stretch. He's just beelining it to the nether where he'll hunt down a ghast that he can say no you to. Remember that when he first entered the nether, there was a ghast near the portal. Bloons is hoping that ghast will still be there, but it's not guaranteed. It could have despawned when he went to the nether fortress. After getting his bearings in the nether and figuring out which direction it was that he did all his block placement and mining earlier, he starts heading that way, with the ghast from earlier having notably despawned. You might be asking how he knew it despawned without looking around for it too much. Ghasts are some low-key noisy sons of bitches and easy to identify by sound alone, and as he moves around the nether, he's really listening out for any ghast that might be keeping up their friend's parents at the slumber party. The ghast is his #1 priority, but he still does need to smelt some more iron for the minecart achievement. He turned off the hitboxes earlier, but turns them back on here to help spot the ghast since the giant white hitboxes are easy to pick out. While he waits for the iron to smelt, he does a little bit of netherrack scavenging since he'll need to climb pretty high soon, and also craft some ladders, which he'll use in getting to where he'll do the minecart achievement. Once the iron's been smelted, he then uses the crafting bench he placed nearby to make 3 minecarts with it, since he'll be doing an exploit that needs 3. It's now time to really focus on strictly finding a ghast. Bloons felt that this ended up being pretty unlucky, with there being quite a bit of searching required to find one. He's really keeping an ear out because sometimes ghasts can spawn in little cave areas behind blocks where they're just having a little rave all to themselves. Up here, he finally ends up hearing one, with Bloons immediately snapping to and sprinting its direction. This ghast ended up being really far away, which makes killing it all the more annoying. After that intense game of Pong, it's now time to head to the nether roof for the final achievement. Getting to the nether roof itself is something you're not normally supposed to be able to do, though with a ladder and an ender pearl, anything is possible. Namely, a pearl clip is possible. I've labeled this as a glitch, which might lead to some of you going, hey, wait a second, since after all, this is a random seed glitchless run, though pearl clipping is allowed by the official speedrun leaderboard. Bloons needs to get really high up in the nether for a pearl clip. This is where all the netherrack and wood he's collected comes in handy, since he can pillar on up. He doesn't have to be all the way up, perfectly below the upper limit of the nether, but as close as he can easily get works. Once he's gone up high enough, he places a ladder that leads to the unbreakable roof, hops on and buries his face in the top corner, and throws an ender pearl upwards, which throws it on the other side of the seam/corner, warping him up onto the roof. Here he'll do another glitch that's actually allowed in RSG runs, which actually predates Bloons' time in the community. This glitch is where you place down some tracks so they turn and you have an angled one, then break all the tracks, save for the angled one. You then build some other tracks so that you have one sloping down toward the turn track, with the other ones built on a block above the one aimed at the turn. He'll then place down the 3 minecarts on the top track and break the brick below them. This causes them to fall on the remaining sloped track, directing them towards the angled track. For some reason, the 3 carts hitting that angled track causes them to infinitely push each other, so Bloons can then hop in for the free ride to 1,000 blocks distance. This glitch is allowed in RSG runs because without this glitch, the category would turn into just looking for enough iron to craft 1,000 rails, which would be a super boring category. All he's got to do now is coast to earning the On a Rail achievement, with the run officially ending when the pop-up appears. This will take a bit, so let's fast forward a little, and while we get there, I want to give a big thank you to anyone who made it this far in the video. Most importantly though, I want to give a huge thank you to Bloons for helping make this video. He's incredibly knowledgeable about speedrunning this game, having been doing it for over 6 years now. He was telling me that when he first started running this game, he only really grinded set seed runs, thinking that playing random seed runs was going to be all about luck and not much skill. After a couple years of strictly set seed runs, he started doing random seed runs, and in the process, learned that there's actually a lot of skill in RSG runs, namely the skill of decision making. Categories like this are all about how you approach a seed, making decisions on the fly to best optimize your chances. These decisions are informed by hundreds of hours doing runs and hundreds of failed attempts. Bloons truly is an expert when it comes to this run, and I think it really shows with how fast of a run he was able to get with how much went wrong. Really reinforces the idea that making decisions in crunch time is an ability you can hone. If you're a Minecraft speedrun enjoyer and you want to see some high-level play, I can't recommend enough you check out Bloons' channel for the runs he posts when he gets PBs. Link is in the description. Back to the run, he's just about to hit the 1000 block distance. When he does, the timer automatically stops, reading out his final time of 52 minutes and 17 seconds, which is still faster than the second place run on the leaderboard. Huge GG's to Bloons. That's all for this video though. This was an all achievement speedrun of Minecraft. I've been tomatoanus, and I hope you have an above average day.